Hey Trekkies, it's summer, and you know what that means. It's time for Creation Entertainment's Trek to Las Vegas 2025. This year, the convention has been expanded to a 5-day schedule, August 6th through the 10th at the Rio Las Vegas Hotel. Meet all your favorite Star Trek pros in one place, and hey, maybe you swing by Vic's Lounge and you see our panel. It's a great way to meet people in person and have some fun with your fellow Trekkies. If you can't make it to Star Trek Las Vegas, of course, there's also other events around the country this year. Trek to Orlando, August 23rd through 24th. There's the Trek to New Jersey, September 6th and 7th. And finally, the Trek to Chicago, November 22nd and 23rd. We're looking forward to meeting as many of you as we can this year. So make sure that you get ready to trek to Las Vegas.
This is Michael Benyaer, and you're listening to Open Pike Night. Sounds like something good to do with your ears. Sounds like. Get it? It's a charades reference.
Is this thing on? Hello, hello. Welcome to Open Pike Night, the Strange New Worlds podcast where your personal logs are the prime directive. I'm your host, John T. Bolds, here tonight with an amazing guest on stage and callers waiting in the wings to flip the hourglass and bring awareness of some delicious Vulcan treats. Joining me tonight are my co-hosts. First up is our resident reboot fan and hors d'oeuvre enthusiast, Jesse Bailey.
I cannot wait to try some tasty canapes.
And the man who also knows to always load up on the good snacks early at a party because you never know what's going to happen. Host of Green Shirt, a newbie trek through TNG, Cameron.
What sort of snack? A sacred snack?
And our guest tonight is a talent who is part of both the Marvel Universe and the Star Trek Universe. He knows his union details and he keeps growing as an actor, from his role in The Expanse as a husband sidelined by his powerful and controlling wife, to Star Trek as a husband who, as a guy who just wants to chill with a Starship Captain and play some party games. Welcome, Michael Benyaer, here to share some sacred words with us on the Open Pike Night stage.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Wowie, wow, wow, as Borat says. Wow, wow, wee, wow.
That's what I said when I saw your IMDb list, sir.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I just want to say that was amazing. I don't know if the audience knows I can see these guys. And I saw John do the kind of Tonight Show intro, like, you know, at his microphone live. I didn't just hear it pre-taped. I saw him do it. It was amazing. I felt this is like live television. This is great. Or radio.
Oh, thank
or
you
podcast.
very much.
It's a live podcast.
What?
Yes.
And we just want to say, start off, congratulations on the episode Charades being named one of the top 10 episodes of television for 2024 by Rolling Stone magazine. That's amazing.
Well, thank you. I was but a small footnote in it. And I do want to congratulate, the producers, especially the writers of the episode, Henry Alonzo Myers and Catherine Lynn. Because really the strength of the episode was in the writing and the creating of the situation. And, all the comedy and the pathos came from their writing. So I want to give a shout out to them right off the bat.
You're not wrong, sir. Everyone involved in this episode deserves some part of it being one of the best episodes of TV, according to Rolling Stones. But
right.
In no small part, sir, you and, of course, your lovely on-screen wife, Alora. I rewatched the episode recently. And it is surprising, you two are not in the episode very much at all. You show up quite late and
34 minutes in. Yeah.
Alora told us it was only like 2 days of filming.
Right.
But my memory of it was that you guys had a huge part. Like, your presence so outweighs the screen time. Like, I had invented entire scenes of T'Pring and Alora walking through the halls having a conversation that did not exist.
Right.
So
well, maybe they will. Or they do in an alternate timeline.
There you go.
I certainly hope so.
It's really interesting. I'd auditioned for the show a couple of times So I'm sure people tell you that it's all these kind of code names, right? So I'm pretty sure I auditioned for the Discovery show, actually, as well as Picard. I'd auditioned for in LA, but I'd auditioned a couple of times, and I didn't get those parts. And then this role came, and I auditioned. Everything is during COVID, by the way, right? So this is like 2 or 3 years ago. So there's no going into rooms anymore. Everything is at home, and everything is self-taped, and they give you notes. And the casting director, I don't know if people are giving shout outs to casting directors, but the casting director of Strange New Worlds in Canada is a woman named Robin Cook, who cast me on The Expanse. Okay. So although I've never met her because I'm a West Coast person, and she knew of me, I guess, through agents and work. And I was doing these tapes over the years for her. And a few years earlier, I had done The Expanse. And when I researched it afterwards, I think that Henry Alonso Myers is friendly with Naren Shankar, who was the showrunner of The Expanse. And if you guys know The Expanse, I replaced an actor, Brian George, fantastic actor, who had originated the role of Arjun in The Expanse. And he was unavailable because he'd gotten a TV series playing a father on a sitcom in LA. So he wasn't going to be able to kind of do double duty because of the flights and everything. So they called me to audition, and I'd auditioned a few times earlier for The Expanse. And when that, came through, I called my agent afterwards and I said, someone's already playing this part. and she's like, oh, I don't know. They want to see you. And I was like, okay. And then when I figured out he got a show, I said, say yes immediately, because as soon as that other show is canceled, things are invariably canceled. He will come back to this. So it didn't work out that way. And I got to do that season with Shorey Agdashlu and the fantastic writers on that show, which I believe brought me to the attention of the showrunners of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. So it all kind of is one big universe, as it will, right? So that everybody's, watching what everybody else is doing. And I don't think it hurt that I did play kind of the beta male to a strong woman on The Expanse. Yeah.
And they left you holding the bag for Marco dropping those asteroids on you, man. That sucks.
Right.
It's a great way to get a job where you're not really worried that there's going to be bad blood because, he's just succeeding additionally. So happy to step in for him.
Oh, yeah. You're saying regarding Brian. Yeah. I haven't seen him since then. I met him years ago, at some auditions, and I was such a fan of his from Seinfeld and many things. And I was just so honored that they would even put me in the same kind of category as him. So I really hope to meet him again soon. So,
do you remember what the scene was that you auditioned with for Strange New Worlds?
It was the meeting and the eating of the food, and as you can tell, it was like, do you fake eating? Do you do all these things? Do what you do? And interesting, because we don't do it in person, they wanted us to give several variations, which a lot of times they don't want in casting when you self-tape. They say, give us 2 or 3 takes of how you would do it differently. And I did see that it was a comedic episode, but I was like, how funny do I make this? Right. And when we did end up filming it, that discussion was had with Jordan Canning, who directed it. And I remember there was a discussion is, how demonstrative am I? Because I'm a Vulcan. And she's like, oh, I see what you're saying, but we can try a couple different ways. So we did it different ways where I was less demonstrative, and what we ended up with in the end. So it worked. I mean, I think they took different versions of it. If you watch it, I can see myself. They did stuff where I didn't really, show too much emotion. Others where I was more emotional. But it was interesting.
When did you realize it was Star Trek? Alora says she picked up on just the reads, the asides that she auditioned with.
How
Star
did I
Trek.
know? I had a feeling because I had auditioned before, and they had the same code name. So, and then I'll tell you guys this, since we're talking Star Trek. A few years earlier, I'd auditioned for a movie. I believe it was called Star Trek Beyond.
Oh.
Okay. And basically, I was cast in a role. It was a much different procedure. You had to go in person, and they wouldn't say what the project was. And when it came down to it, they said, yes, we want him for this, but he has to commit now and then not do, had to commit to a day, like one day, like 4 months in advance. And it just didn't work out because of the scheduling. I was like, I can't commit to that. But, and also I was afraid that if I did, that it would preclude me from doing other roles in the future in the Star Trek universe, because I had that experience I did an episode of The Flash where I played a character, and then they created this kind of Flash universe. And they're like, well, you were this guy in The Flash. You can't be on Arrow or da-da-da-da. And I'm like, nobody knows this. But now they do know this because of the internet. It's like the comic book guy on on The Simpsons. Actually,
Simpsons,
episode 4, So it was. I gambled and I said I'm going to hold out for something better, and I think it came out with this. So it worked out.
I'm so grateful that ended up that way. Wow.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I don't even know what the character. I have a feeling, but I don't. We don't have to get into it. But it was an alien character. So when it came down to this, they booked you a couple of weeks in advance, and this was at the height of COVID still. This was 2022, around April. And I was in Vancouver, and they shoot the show in Toronto. So they wanted to fly me out, and they had me go and do the wardrobe fitting at this, space in Gastown of Vancouver, this funky space. And this guy did more measurements on me than I've ever had in my life. It was like the measurements for like 12 suits. He did every direction from my nape of my neck to my shoulder, all this and that. It took about an hour. And they needed those measurements so they could begin on the costumes, which were fantastic, as you know. So then they fly me out, and I'm there a week before we're going to film because they need to do the last minute adjustments on the outfit and also to get me there. Okay, now I get to the studio outside of Toronto, and offhand, because by the way, I'm having to do COVID tests getting on the flight, getting off the flight every day. And I get to the studio, and I offhand kind of jokingly say to a woman on the set, I said, I got a lot of COVID tests on this. And she says, yeah, we're averaging 5 positive tests a day.
Wow.
And I said, oh my goodness. And then I got really afraid to kind of get infected, because if you were infected, you couldn't do the show, right? So I basically, sequestered myself in my hotel room and didn't see anybody for a week. And the day before we were going to film, it was a Sunday into the Monday. I got a call that someone had tested positive. And I was like, okay, what happens now? Do I stay in this hotel for another week? They're like, we're going to fly you back to Vancouver for a week. So I go back again to Vancouver for a week. And now I'm hyper vigilant. I don't go out for dinner with anybody. I barely see my girlfriend. I don't want to go to any like family dinners or anything. And I fly back a week later, and we do film the show, and it came out great. And I wanted to say this as well. The episode dropped or was released on, I believe it was July 17th. Is that correct? If you guys know?
That sounds accurate.
It is. The reason I know this is it was the day that the Screen Actors Guild went on strike. So that at noon at that point, I was effectively on strike. So I could not start doing promotion or interviews. And I want to apologize to the several people that contacted me from different publications saying, will you do our podcast or interview? And I was like, I can't do this right now. And I didn't want to get into the whole thing. So I didn't respond. And here I am today. The strike is over, and it was resolved. And some keen, listeners or viewers will see that I ended up running into Ethan Peck and Jack Quaid at the Paramount strike on Star Trek Day. And we took a photo, and we walked and talked a bit. But it was just the weird timing. Literally, I could post about it in the morning, and at noon Pacific time, I could no longer talk about doing the show.
Wow.
So that's the date of the release of this episode.
Mm.
Yeah, we had Chris Fisher, one of the other directors for
Right.
Strange New Worlds, lined up, and it was like, I think it was the day prior to our interview with him that the writer's strike started. So, I mean, we're just grateful to have an
Yes.
opportunity to finally help you guys talk about your work. I mean,
Right.
the off season this year is going to be long, so
Right.
we appreciate you taking some time to sit
Thank
down
you.
with us.
Thank you. Yeah.
Did they ever like test you with the potential actresses for your on-screen wife or T'Pril, or did they just cast you separately and hope you got along?
Yes, it was a long process. We were scheduled. We were shot. We went to Los Angeles and did a screen test at Paramount. No, they didn't do any of that. She's fantastic. Alora, she's got a huge, career. She was on a series at the time, and she is the go-to person for those kind of mothers of people of that
Mhm.
type. And I'm just lucky enough to have been cast as her husband. She's fantastic. And by the way, Gia, fantastic, beautiful, amazing, hilarious. I just rewatched it and I was like, it is so hard as an actor, as an actress, an actor, to be funny as a Vulcan. Like, you can't do
Mhm.
sitcom
Mhm.
reads. You have to do these kind of logical reads, and I was watching, Gia playing T'Pring, my daughter T'Pring. I named her. It's so good at that kind of off-kilter comedy. I loved it. Yeah.
So when did you get interested in acting? What was it?
When did I get interested in acting? As a kid, I love TV. I'm an only child, and I have this story that I've told, and I don't know if it's true anymore, but I've been telling it so long it's true. By the way, I watched the original Star Trek repeats as a kid, and it was around the time of Star Wars being popular, so I was obsessed with anything with the aliens and all that, and of course, Spock was my favorite. And I also watched Gilligan's Island, and I remember saying to my dad, "Did they film that on an island every week?" And he's like, "No, Michael, they filmed that on a set. Those are actors. That's there." And I was like, "That is the greatest job in the world, that you could do that." And I remember learning as a very young age that William Shatner was Canadian, and that Leonard Nimoy was also an actor who wasn't really an alien and all that. And it was a real favorite show of mine as a kid, because they were, I don't know how to say it. It was something you could do. Like Shatner was Canadian, right? I was like, oh, we can do that. And I also told this story recently to a friend, which is my other favorite show at the time was Happy Days. And my mother bought me the unauthorized biography of Henry Winkler. And in it, there was a photo of him at a private school, as a kid. And I realized he was just like me. And years later, I ended up meeting Henry Winkler at an audition for a sitcom. And I ended up doing a sitcom pilot with Henry Winkler.
Wow.
So and he was, as a child, the inspiration that you can do this. It's possible to do this. So, at a very young age, I wanted to do it. And I started professionally at about 16, 17 in high school, because in Vancouver at the time, they had started filming a lot of American TV shows. And the first show was a show called 21 Jump Street.
Mm-hmm.
And they had done the pilot in my high school. If you guys remember what the premise of the show was about undercover cops in high school.
Only because of the movie do I know that, but yes.
You do, only because of the movie. You're so much younger. I love that. So the premise of the show was undercover cops in high school. We're all extras from our 10th, 11th grade. And we see this guy walking down the hall with a leather jacket and like a 5 o'clock shadow. And we're like, this guy does not look like he's in high school. And that actor was the original actor to portray Tom Hansen, which Johnny Depp replaced him a few months later, because they realized that guy didn't look exactly young enough. And I was there, I think, pretty much on Johnny Depp's first day when they did the reshoots with him. And I met him in the hallway in front of my principal's office. And I started talking to him, and he was wearing the same jacket as the other guy. And I said, "Are you an actor?" And he goes, "Well," "I'm more of a musician." I go, "What's your name?" He goes, "Johnny. I got a band." I go, "What's your band called?" He says, "The Rock City Angels." And I'm like, "All right, I'll look out for it." So a couple weeks later, I got my first part on the show, and I got into the transport van, and he got in the front, and he did a double take, and he recognized me. He says, "Hey, good for you. You got a part on the show." So that was an auspicious start to this business, and I don't know what happened to him, but I never did hear his band.
Yeah, I don't think the band took off. That's too
No,
bad.
no.
Yeah, not so
Poor
much.
guy.
Yeah.
Well, great. And then did you go to like acting school after that, or how did you proceed?
No, you guys are asking me the tough questions. I stayed in high school. I was doing acting while in school. I did my first voiceover cartoon at the time, which was Barbie and Ken, which was Barbie and the Rockers. And I was the voice of Ken. And for some reason, it got in the Canadian news cycle that an all American was voiced by an all Canadian. And I ended up doing an interview much like this on Midday, which is like Good Morning America in Canada. And after that, I got known for doing kind of cartoons in Canada. So I was continuing to do that. I did G.I. Joe right out of high school. I did an episode of Sonic the Hedgehog. And then I was still acting in high school. And then out of high school, I was like, I don't want to go to college, even though you were supposed to do that. And I started, and me and my two best friends at the time, I got us a job writing for a national television show in Canada called Pilot One. And it was kind of a Saturday Night Live meets, I don't know, Zoom, if you remember Zoom, kind of a youth oriented stuff. And we did that for 6 months, and then it got canceled because of a strike. And I was like, this is out of my control. I should go back to school. So I went back to university, as we say in Canada, and I studied creative writing while I was still acting. And I did movies and voiceovers and TV shows while in university in Canada. And I really had always wanted to kind of get to the next market in my mind, which was Los Angeles. And a year or two out of college, I ended up in LA on a kind of it was like a pitch trip. I was going to go help this couple pitch a sitcom. And when I got there, they said, hey, they just postponed the meeting to Comedy Central for 6 weeks. Do you still want to do this practice pitch with us tonight with our agent? I said, sure, it's Hollywood. It could happen. Who knows? You know what? Who knows what could happen? So at that dinner that night, they introduced me to their agent, and they introduced me that I was an actor from Canada, and I did a lot of voiceover. And this woman looked at me for about 2 minutes, and she said, do you do a Middle Eastern accent? And I said, yes. And she says, there's a famous cartoon where they need someone who is Middle Eastern to do it. Anyway, long and short, I looked into that, and the show was Johnny Quest. And I said, he's not Middle Eastern, he is Indian. And they said, same difference. And I said, welcome to Hollywood. And then they said, do you think you can do it? And I said, look, I can do an Indian accent, but I know the show. The kid's 7 years old. I'm good, but I'm not that good. They go, he's 17 now. I go, that I could do. So that set into motion a couple of things. I was doing a show called Reboot at the time. And I asked the casting and the director of that show, Andrea Romano, if she could refer me to an agent in Los Angeles. And they did, which was ICM at the time. And they got me the audition, and it got me into Los Angeles like I'd always wanted.
Nice.
And that brought me to Hollywood in 94, I guess. Yeah, January. Okay. 95 I started. And then I was starting all over again, trying to do this in LA. And it was ups and downs. And I went to grad school while I continued to act. And then I got out of that. And then I basically, at around 30 years old, was like, I've not been able to get to the level I wanted to get to. And I decided to go to law school. So I applied to law school in Canada. I went back to Canada. And 1 week into law school, September of 2001, a world event happened. And I realized that in a couple of months or a year, there'd be a lot of movies that would need a guy that looked like me. So
you had that actual thought.
I had that realization.
Very foresightful of you. Yeah.
I mean, it was sad because I would always go to things that like, well, you could be this, you could be that, but and that's what happened. So I decided to finish my degree, and in my last year of law school, I went back to LA for spring break, and I got a sitcom pilot with Henry Winkler, and that was it. So then the next year I did one with Heather Graham that got picked up, and that was canceled after one night. So you're hearing kind of an up and down story of how it goes. You get it, and then it doesn't happen.
Oh, it's great.
It doesn't happen. So that is how I am. And here we are, talking about the latest and the greatest, which was Strange New Worlds.
Well, I do want to go back and touch on some of those things you said, but let's jump to a listener's question, because it does kind of tie in with what you were talking about a bit.
Sure.
Here we go. Here is Jen.
Hey, Open Pike, this is Jen. Thanks for having me. For these interviews, I like to look up and rewatch previous work in addition to, what we see on Trek. I didn't realize just how much of your work I'd already seen, mostly the animation, like Reboot and Exo Squad from way back in the day.
Right.
That took me back.
Wow.
I see that you have a lot of live action and animation voiceover work. What are some difficulties or challenges in going between the two? Is there much of a difference in your approach when playing a character that's live action versus the voiceover? And what do you like most about voice work versus live action and vice versa? I know that was a lot of questions. So anywho's, I hope to see you again in future work, and y'all have a good whatever.
Jen, thank you very much for a well thought out question and for being a longtime fan, as you say.
Oh, yeah.
I'll tell you the thing I love most about voiceover is that I can play anything. Okay. So like I was telling you, so often in film and TV, they'd be like, well, you don't look like you could be related to this character. You do look like, you don't look like we imagine this and that. Whereas in voiceover, you just go in and do it. And the other thing is that on some of the shows, I get to do more than one character. I mean, how often do you get to do that in film and TV, unless you're Mike Myers or, Jim Carrey or somebody or Eddie Murphy. So I'm actually just starting a new animated series, which is a famous title I can't tell you guys yet. And I'm getting to play two characters in it. So, I mean, I pinch myself sometimes that the kid in me is like, I can't believe I'm doing this. So that's the best part about doing animation, is that you can play anything and more than one character. In film and TV, you gotta get there. You gotta get there early. You gotta get your makeup, your ears put on in this case. You gotta, you gotta shave. You gotta learn the lines. And in voiceover, you get a lot more takes sometimes. Like the cartoon that I'm doing right now, they're like, can you just do that line again? We'll pick it up, we'll put it in. Whereas you can't really do that in film and TV. It's more disruptive. Like you got to do the whole scene again or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Like she said, you do have a lot of credits. Do you know how many acting credits you have on IMDb?
Well, I do know. I think it's like 160 or something, but that is not accurate.
164 according to IMDb, yeah.
Oh, okay, 164. But I'm saying some are in there, some are not in there. There are some that are not even me, that someone else has attributed to me. And I'm like, okay, I'll take it.
Well,
okay,
let me know
I'll take it.
if I ask any questions about any of those.
I love that. I always liken it to Canadian actors. It's a volume business. Really, which is you got to just keep working because, in the States, one job and you're set for life. In Canada, you got to keep doing it. So I'm between, Canada and Los Angeles, and I'm constantly going back and forth to just keep trying to stay in the game, as it were. Mm-hmm. And I love voiceover because it's definitely carried me through of the times where I was like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. By the way, that's the kicker, which is, I had started law school and they called me and they said, hey, Reboot wants to redo the opening monologue of the show for this 4th season of it, which is kind of a Star Trek Final Frontier monologue, if you know of the show. And I said, well, I'm sorry, but I'm starting law school right now. And they said, don't worry about it. We can record you in downtown Winnipeg, which is where I was. And that's the thing, which is I could still do my own thing while still doing voiceover. Like it didn't disrupt my life that much.
I mean, the other thing about voiceover, well, like you said, is you can play multiple characters in a show, like Robot Chicken, where you play both Jesus and Ron Jeremy and Leonard Nimoy. I don't know if any actor has such a breadth of characters.
I played Leonard Nimoy on that show?
I think that's what your website said.
Oh, wow.
Even.
Then I did, I guess. I don't know.
It's a volume game, Cameron.
That's right.
It's a volume
That's
game, right? The show with Robot Chicken is a great story, which is I was very good friends with Seth Green's girlfriend at the time. We were
Okay.
friends, and we were all hanging out, and he decided to do this kind of new online animation show. It was called Sweet J Presents. And if you guys know the history, he had done an appearance on Conan O'Brien as stop motion. Somebody saw it at Sony and they said, we think we should do a series about this. And he decided he would do it. And I recorded all the first season of different characters of Sweet J Presents in this kind of garage in the Hollywood Hills. Nothing happened with that show. A year or two later, Cartoon Network says, we want to do it and we'll buy it from them, but you need to re-record all of those things because Sony owns that. So Seth calls me up and says, hey, we're redoing, Sweet J. It's going to be called Robot Chicken. And do you want to do it again? I can pay you this time. And I said, sure, sounds great. And he goes, the thing is, Michael, in the original version, we did the spoof of Enter the Dragon about Joey Fatone. It was called Enter the Fat One. You voiced Joey Fatone, Mr. Miyagi, and Yakuza number 2. We've now got Joey Fatone and Pat Morita. So do you still want to do Yakuza number 2? And I'm like, yes, of course. So a lot of the voices I did on the original show were done later by much more famous people than me. And as the show became more and more successful, you can see as it increased in celebrity guest stars. So I think the first 2 or 3 seasons I did it. And if you have the DVD of the first season, that whole season of Sweet J is there. And I voice a lot more characters in the original thing.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
Nice.
Yeah. So, it's funny. I ran into Seth at an event maybe about a year ago. And I'm like, hey, man, I want to do more Robot Chicken. He's like, yeah, I'm not in charge of that anymore. I don't know. So Seth, if you're listening, I still want to do more.
Absolutely.
Yes, famously, Seth Green, big Open Pike Night listeners, as far as we're aware.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, going back to Barbie, then, I mean, did it feel like a big deal that you got Ken as one of your first voiceover
it was
roles?
a big deal in Canada. It was funny. And it was a big deal in Canada. And I think it was basically a pilot. They did 2 specials to do a series, and they ended up not doing the series. And, later did they do kind of the home video movies that Mainframe, who created Reboot, did, which were the kind of the CGI ones, which looked more like the real dolls. So it basically was a way of me starting voiceover and people pointing to me saying, he can do the generic young hero, non-discernible accent. And then I was like, I can do other things. They're like, no, you are Ken, you are G.I. Joe, you are Bob Reboot.
That was Knuff.
That was Knuff. That was Knuff for you. And then when I ended up going to the States with getting Haji, after that, I couldn't get out of doing accents. They're like, no, you're Haji and you're going to do all the different accents. I'm like, hello, can I do both? But it's worked out now. There's kind of a steady balance.
Well, I do have to ask about one of, I think, your first film role, which is Friday the 13th, Part 8,
yes.
Jason Takes Manhattan. Not the best Friday the 13th installment, but not the worst. I quite like that one. You got to work with Kane Hodder. I mean, what can you tell me about that?
Well, Kane and I did extensive rehearsal periods. We really wanted to get to the heart of our characters. No, I met him on the set. I believe it was his first movie as Jason. And I will tell you this, I've said it in another interview. It was really interesting because when we auditioned for the film, they did not tell us it was a Friday the 13th film. It was called Ashes to Ashes. And all mentions of Jason in the film were Ethan. And I still have that script. And I put up, during COVID, I went through all my stuff I had from storage. and I put up a couple of the screen caps of the script from 1988, whatever. And it was interesting because they had a fear that the fans of the show were into the occult and would come and, you know, do things on the set.
Mm-hmm.
And Kane, I remember, was a stunt man that was then kind of given this stunt acting role. And if you've seen the film, my character is killed by having my head smashed into a pipe, and then a steam pipe. And then I didn't do that, thankfully. It was another stunt guy, and that guy kind of got a scar from that. So I'm very thankful that I didn't do it. And I still remember that we filmed it over a couple of nights, and it was the night, because I watched it in my trailer, that Rob Lowe sang with Snow White on the Academy Awards. That was the night we filmed that scene. And the movie came out very quickly after that. I think they really rushed those into the theaters. It was March until a few months later. And I remember those are the days where everybody who I knew wanted to see the movie with me. So I had to end up going to the movie 5 or 6 times. And I didn't want to sit through it. It's a great film 2 or 3 times. Okay.
That's right.
But, number 5, I walked out to get popcorn and come back at about an hour in when I reappear in the film. So yes, it's interesting how the longevity of those films, people still talk to me about it. It's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big franchise, and I've rewatched the scene, and your face is smashed into a pipe. I don't know if that would kill you, though. I think you're in the very small club of people who have encountered Jason and survived. In fact,
you know what?
I want to see Gangbanger #2 come back in a reboot. And you've got you're
in a reboot. Come on. Okay.
Yeah.
You know what? I think you're right. His name, actually, I do have a name in the film, even though the credits say it's JoJo, because the guy refers to me as JoJo.
Oh,
and
nice.
I think you're right. I think it should be The Wrath of JoJo and JoJo versus Jason. I think
Here for it.
I'm there.
Yeah, I'm here for it. Yeah.
I'm there.
5 or 6 times in the theaters, man. Let's do it.
So another franchise you were a part of, Michael, of course, is the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and Deadpool. Do you have any stories from Deadpool?
First of all, I as the comic book guy from The Simpsons, I would like to point out that it was not actually the Marvel Universe when I did it. It was a 20th Century Fox production of its own universe. Okay, so
good at that.
Yes, so they had shot the movie, and they came back to do reshoots. And the movie at the time in production was called, does anybody know?
No.
Wham. Because they had the George Michael song in the movie.
Yep.
So this role comes up for this Serbian warlord, and I'm hearing about this, and I tell my agent, I think I could do that. And she goes, all right, okay. And I get the script, and I don't know who the scene is with. I'm imagining it is with Ryan Reynolds, and I'm taping it, and I'm envisioning him. And when I get to the set, it is not him. So when I get there, it is the actor Ed Skrein who plays Francis, and he was fantastic. And that was one day of filming and in Vancouver. And I'll tell you what's interesting about this business, which is before I had agreed to do this, I booked another part on a show called Beauty and the Beast, which was a much bigger part, and it was filming in Toronto, and it was going to conflict with this Deadpool. So I said to my agent, I really would like to do both. I really want to do this Deadpool movie. I think it could do something. I think this movie is going to do something, because they didn't know it wasn't a huge movie. I mean, it was a movie, but it wasn't going to be what it ended up becoming. She's like, okay, so they worked it out. So I filmed that morning, and I flew that night on a red eye to Toronto, and I filmed the next day on this other show, Beauty and the Beast. But I made it happen that I wanted to do it, because it almost wasn't going to work out. But I'm glad that I did.
Yeah. Did you ever get to meet Ryan Reynolds? Or
I met Ryan Reynolds when he was about 12 years old. Okay. At a recording session for a cartoon in Vancouver. And they said, this kid has just come from Florida, where he was in this Disney soap opera or whatever. And I was like, this little pudgy kid. And then, of course, today he is the Deadpool and the Ryan Reynolds that we know. And I did not meet him on the movie, and I'm sure I will one day on another production, or maybe another Deadpool movie if my character comes back.
He doesn't get killed. That's right.
He is not killed.
That's right.
That's right.
I mean, I could always ask also, how is it working with Michael Bay?
Wow, you're getting some good questions. That movie was Transformers 2.
Revenge of the Fallen.
Revenge of the Fallen. So interesting trivia for you, which is I'd auditioned for the film and don't hear anything and get a last minute phone call. Are you available tomorrow? I'm like, okay, can you do that? So they email me, they like, and can you translate this into Arabic? And I'm like, okay, I'll do my best. And then I said, who's playing the other guy? And they tell me Kaz Anvar. And if you know The Expanse, Kaz Anvar played Alex Kamal. This is prior to doing The Expanse. So I knew Kaz as an actor in LA. We were both Canadian guys here. So I say to him, I said, have him call me. So Kaz calls me and he's like, hi. I go, so Kaz, I've translated the stuff. I've got it translated. I'm going to email you the Arabic translation and we'll do this. And he's like, okay. He's being very kind of tentative with me. And after a minute or two, he's like, is this Michael Bay? Right? And I go, no, this is Michael Benyaer. He's like, oh my God. They said Michael wants you to call him. So we get to the set and we kind of run over our lines and Michael Bay shows up and, he's got a reputation of being, an excitable guy. So we meet him on the set and he says, I understand one of you guys pulled an all-nighter translating the stuff. I go, yes, sir. He goes, do you speak it? And I'm like, not fluently, but I know my lines. He goes, okay. And he gives me his phone. He goes, this is the translator. Do it with him on the phone. So I start doing it with the translator. And the guy's like, that's good. That sounds good. That's too formal. Change this, change that. And I'm doing this on a handwritten thing. We go over, we do the scene as written. And Michael Bay says, okay, good, but I don't like this and this. And then he grabs Kaz's script and Kaz has printed up all of the alternates that I've given him, not the lines that we've learned. And then Michael Bay says, I don't like this. I don't like this. You take this. You take this. And then the 3 new lines that we have not practiced at all. Okay. And I go, and I'm like, what are you doing to me? Okay. I'm looking at Kaz. Why did you bring this? Right. So he goes, okay. So we do the scene. Kaz is on the phone. I'm on the phone and I say my line, and then I roll my chair over. I say something to him. I come back. I pick up one phone. I get another phone and I don't know what the hell I'm saying. And I'm reading them off of the script, which I've left on my desk. We're Egyptian Interpol. And I'm looking down. So Michael Bay comes over. He goes, that was great. That was great. He goes, but he goes, why are you looking down? I go, because I don't know what I'm saying. He goes, I don't give a shit. Look out when you're saying it. I'm like, oh my God. So in between the scene, in the middle of the scene, I do the thing. I come down. I look at it to try to memorize this thing I'm going to say a second later. And I look out and I do it. And a couple of times I invert the Arabic and this and that. So anyway, we come and they go, we're going to break for lunch. Okay, right? I'm like, okay. And then they come over and Michael Bay goes off to do something else. And then the guys come and they're going to do the close-up of me. And then they're kind of angling it. And I say, can you see this in my desk? And they go, yeah. I go, this is my script. I don't want you to see this. Right? And I go, okay, so if I move it over here, will you see it? They go, no. So then that close-up of me saying that line is me reading it off of a cue card. Off camera, and thankfully Bay wasn't there to oversee that, and we got through it, and we made it into the final cut. And years later, Kaz, returned the favor, and he got me, referred to The Expanse, and I ended up playing Arjun on The Expanse,
which helped you get
so
Star Trek. So from Transformers,
which
to Star
helped
Trek.
me get Star Trek, exactly.
That's so cool. That is, yeah, and consummate professional, right? Like, man, you made it work. You found a way to make it work under pressure.
Why did they ask
really
you to
cool.
translate into Arabic?
It's a $200 million movie. They don't have the money to do that kind of stuff.
They gotta save money where they can, right?
Right.
Yeah.
No, what happened was the actors that had been cast were not available because Shia LaBeouf had broken his arm and hand in a car accident the day before. So they had to reschedule, and the two guys that they had originally cast were not available, so they went to their second choices, which was myself and Kaz.
It's Hollywood. So you never know what'll happen.
That's Hollywood. You never know what's going to happen. So we landed on our feet, and we're still here.
And those of you out there channeling your inner comic book guy, yes, there are two other Star Trek connections in Revenge of the Fallen. Of course, Rainn Wilson and the inimitable Tony Todd.
Right.
Johnny Quest, I believe you got to work with Mark Hamill on, correct?
The first day.
What?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was a big deal for me. I'd moved to California for this job, and I didn't know how long it would take to get to the studio, Hanna-Barbera, the same studio they did, Scooby-Doo and the Flintstones, all this stuff. So I drive there, and I'm there about 20 minutes early, and I'm sitting in the casting office, and I'm early, and the casting director, her name was Chris Zimmerman, said to her assistant, "Make sure Mark Hamill has all the sides." And I said, "I beg your pardon?" And she said, "Mark Hamill." I said, "As in Star Wars?" And she said, "Yeah." I said, "Oh my God." And she's like, "What's wrong?" I said, "You don't understand. I was 24 years old." I said, "I'm 24 years old." I said, "Every day of my life from 1977 to 1982 was obsessed with Star Wars. I had the bedspreads, I had the curtains, I had the comic book, everything, the trading cards." And I said, "And this guy is going to," she goes, "Yeah, he's going to be here today. You have a bigger part than him." She says, "Do you know who Robert Patrick is?" I said, "Wow." "Yeah." And she says, "He's going to be here every week." I said, "Well," I said, "in all fairness," I said, "he was famous after I was a kid, so it's not that big of a deal." But Mark Hamill was there the first day, and I just couldn't believe it. And we were sitting in a rehearsal room reading through it, and he was doodling on his script. And then there was a couple minutes, like a minute walk to the studio. We did it. And on my drive home, I said to myself, Michael, you fantasize as a kid what you'd say to this guy if you ever met him. And, it was kind of like, Chris Farley, stupid. You should have said this thing, And if you ever see him again, you got to ask those questions. He's there the next day. Okay. Oh. So I get up the courage, and at the same time, that walk between the rehearsal to the studio, I said, "Hey, Mark," I said, "as a kid, I heard this rumor that when you signed to do Star Wars, you got one piece of merchandise made, everything made in accordance with the film. Is that true?" He said, "Yes, it is true." And I was like, "Wow." And he said, "Well, when we signed to do the movie, we thought there'd be a soundtrack and a book. We didn't think there'd be, toothbrushes and, all this kind of stuff." I was like, wow. And I said, "So I heard that you got so much stuff that you put it into like an airplane hangar?" He goes, "Well, not an airplane hangar, a storage space. Yes." He goes, "I got so much stuff." I was like, "Wow, is that true?" He's like, Yeah. I go, "So what did you do with it all?" He says, "Well, I have kids. I had a daughter, and I gave them the action figures, and my daughter shaved Princess Leia's head too." Right. So I was like, wow. And this was just before they were going to do kind of the new movies in 96. So he says, "They're going to do movie." I said, "Are you going to be in it?" He goes, "I don't know. They're talking. I don't know." And this and that. And then I really gave him this extra credit thing to show what a fan I was. I said, "If you were on an episode," I said, "of amazing, what was it? Steven Spielberg's Amazing Stories." Is that what it was called?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I believe so.
Yep.
Amazing Stories. And you played a guy who was a collector as a kid, where this kind of gnome tells him that one day he'll be rich." He goes, "That's right." And I said, "And at you're a hoarder, you keep all this stuff, and at the end of the episode, you're kind of a homeless guy living in the desert with this jalopy with all these things that you've collected over your lifetime." And then they bring them to auction at the auction, the little gnome kind of is the guy, setting bids on it, and you become rich as an old man. And he goes, "Oh, that's right." I go, "Is that like a reference to like holding on to collector stuff from Star Wars and this and that?" And he's like, "I didn't think of that, but maybe you're right. Maybe you're right." So I think I may have overstepped my Star Wars fandom in that place. But yeah, that was basically a bucket list, and the other one was Fonzie bucket list,
Yeah.
and there's one more, which is to work with Steven Spielberg as an actor, but you know, still time for that. By the way, Star Trek was on my list, and I always wanted to be a Vulcan because I always had an affinity with Leonard Nimoy and his performances. I don't know if you guys remember, in the 70s, he also hosted a show called In Search Of. Do you know this?
Vaguely, I'm aware of it, yeah.
So it was basically kind of an unexplained mysteries, and he would kind of come out and be the narrator and host of this show, kind of, you know, weird phenomenon and all that. And I used to love watching that as well. And I have to tell you this, when I got the call that I booked this job, I told my mother, and she's never reacted like this ever in my life for anything I booked. And the only thing, I know this is audio, it's the meme of Jonah Hill from, I think it's Wolf of Wall Street. Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
Like kind of like slapping her, and she just got so excited. And she says, "I always said you're like a Vulcan." So you're welcome, Mom, and thank you, Mom, that I am like a Vulcan. And so that was definitely a bucket list for me.
Nice.
That is very cool. And I'll be honest, Michael, I could probably just spend the rest of our time talking to you about Reboot, but we're a Star Trek show, so we're not going to do that. But I did notice, I mean, your whole career is like this tapestry of interwoven things that you were interested in, and then things that fell in your lap, and things that you worked for. I mean, Reboot, like you said, it has kind of a Star Trek intro. Yeah. I know there's an episode with a character who carries a lightsaber and talks like William Shatner. Like,
right.
I was a huge Reboot fan, and I think it really helped bring computer animation into the mainstream for TV. You know, like, you can do this on a weekly budget. You can make a quality show. What did it feel like to work on that show, just kind of overall? And was there anything different about playing, you know, like a hero for a younger audience versus, you know, just to throw it out there, like Gangbanger #2?
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's interesting. I've played a lot of bad guys and villains on camera, and I think that's because, you know, I explained it to my mom and my girlfriend, which is, when it's cops and robbers show, you got to be the robber when you're the guest star. Do you follow what I'm saying? Either you're MacGyver or you're the guy that MacGyver fights.
Right.
So, whereas in voiceover, you know, I was a young actor. I was in Vancouver at the right place at the right time. And I really approached Bob on Reboot as a Spider-Man-esque character, in the sense that he was thrust into this position of being a hero, unprepared, and kind of finding his way into it. Not exactly Greatest American Hero, but almost that kind of comedic sense. And it's funny, they're just doing a documentary series about Reboot, and I just did the interview a few months ago. Yes. And we talked about this a lot. And I, especially the first couple of seasons of Reboot, I viewed it as a sitcom. For me, that my reads were Seinfeld Jr., if you will. Okay. So there was a diner like Seinfeld, and Seinfeld was very big at the time. So I did it like that, and also you were a kid, I'm assuming, watching the show. That Bob was the big brother, the cool big brother to the audience watching, and they were Enzo, and there was the kind of the big sister or the mom character. In Dot. So I was aware of being a good role model, as it were, as a voice. And I think that came through, and I think that was part of the appeal of the show. And I've done a few conventions in Canada and got to meet the fans firsthand. And I heard a lot of that, you know, that people watched it as a family, and that they had a crush on Bob, or they wanted to be like Bob. And And I think we did a good job in that sense, so that I think it came through. Yeah.
That's really cool to hear. I mean, that show, a lot of kids' TV shows are, I don't know, I don't want to, pigeonhole them, but they're very simple. And I feel like Reboot was one of the first youth-oriented shows that was pretty brainy. I mean, the concepts were, high sci-fi. And I credit it with getting me into Star Trek along with my dad, because it was like, yeah, I love sci-fi. I watched Reboot, and my dad's like, I don't know what that is, but that character is definitely a Shatner pastiche. And I'm like, who is William Shatner? And then
Right.
he sat me down and we watched all the movies. So that is wonderful to hear. And I can't wait to watch that documentary. I didn't even know that was happening.
Yeah,
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I definitely want to check that out.
You're American, you guys, right? You're all American?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Alaskan, so there's a little bit of Canadian
Don't
adjacent.
steal Canadian valor. Don't steal Canadian
You're a
valor.
hybrid. But in Canada, they played Reboot 3 times a day on a channel called YTV, which was youth television. And it played for 5 years, 3 times a day. So in Canada, there's a very large fan base. And in America, it was only on the US, I think, couple seasons on Saturday mornings, and then a couple years later it was on Cartoon Network. But in Canada, definitely a whole generation is really into Reboot. So that's why the producers of this are 2 Canadian fans that have turned their fandom into a docuseries.
That's awesome.
But that's great to hear that there are Americans who are also watching it and being affected as well.
Oh yeah, it was a regular Saturday morning for me too. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Well, one more question about your career before Star Trek, and then we'll jump back in. And you can answer no comment on this if you feel you need to. I understand. But I have to ask, you've worked with Uwe Boll, and what was that experience like?
Wow.
On Postal.
You guys really did your research. And when I say you did your research, you looked at the IMDb. No,
that's right. And Wikipedia.
And Wikipedia. No, Uwe is a great guy. I got to tell you, I did not only one movie where I had a big part in it called Postal. I did 2 other movies for Uwe after that, because he just called me up and says, do you want to do this movie? So I think that Postal is actually pretty funny. If you've seen,
I haven't seen Postal. I've heard it is. I've heard it's a good time.
Okay, so as you know, Uwe had been called the worst filmmaker in the world at the time, the Ed Wood of that time. And that my favorite story about him was that someone registered uwebull.com, and then when you went to it, it says, please stop making movies. Okay. So, I mean, that is a major burn, but he's got the last laugh. He's still working.
That's true.
He's a great guy, but he was so busy that when he was directing that movie, he was producing 2 other movies while we were filming. So he was on his BlackBerry at the director's chair and he's like, okay, action, this kind of stuff. So, and if you see the movie, there are full scenes there that were like, he's like, just make it up. And we kind of made up this whole sequence. And then when I went to do the looping or the ADR in the movie, they're like, well, what did you say here? And I said to the woman, didn't someone write it down? Like a continuity person? And she's like, no. And I'm trying to figure out what I remembered vaguely of what I had said. And I had to kind of figure out what I said in this improvised scene and then kind of loop it from a wide shot. It was quite something. But I think Uwe is misunderstood. I think he is maligned unnecessarily. And he gave a lot of people a lot of work. And that movie Postal, it's pretty funny. It's basically an R-rated mad world is what it is. So thanks, Uwe, if you're listening.
Another one of our big listeners, yes.
Yeah.
You never know.
All right. So we are going to jump straight into charades here because we are ostensibly a Strange New Worlds podcast. But,
right.
We want to get to know the person, not just the role. So I think we're going to start this section off with a question from our friend David Jones, who was an extra in season 2, episode 8, Under the Cloak of War. Is this recorded, John, or is this a written only?
Nope, this is just a write-in from him.
All right.
He says, hi, Michael. Great work on charades, by the way. As someone who is in Strange New Worlds 2, what was your feeling like when they sat you down in the makeup chair and they put the Vulcan ears on you for the first time? And what was your experience like walking onto the set?
Okay. First of all, I think I remember his work. He was very good as the cloaked figure. That was season 1, episode 8. Is that?
Sorry.
episode
Season
8.
2.
I'm
one of
mistaken
the
him for
soldiers. Yep.
That was another guy. That was another
Yeah,
guy. Okay. No, I kid. By the way, I did extra work when I was younger. There is no shame in that. You got to get in the game somehow. I want to caveat this by reminding everybody listening that this was at the height of COVID protocols. Okay. So that we would be, isolated. You could not interact with people. You had to eat your lunch by yourself in your trailer, like, you were some kid with leprosy or something like that, right? You could not interact with people. So the people putting on the makeup were wearing masks, and I don't see their faces. Okay. And they were having full conversations with me. So, but I did record with my I have a video of it, of him putting on the ears, and they also do they adjust your eyebrows. They do something with the eyebrows. So that was fantastic. And there was a little figure of Leonard Nimoy as Spock kind of sitting in the makeup trailer, watching down on us doing it. So that was surreal. I mean, to get to the set, you basically are holding, because they didn't want to walk us back and forth, was the transporter room. So we're sitting in the transporter room in these, actor chairs, and it's me, Elora, Gia, Mia Kirshner, and Ethan Peck. Now, I have to say this, you're getting me into the flow of things. So Mia, I had met, I'd say 20 years earlier in Vancouver, when she was doing the L Word. And we had a common friend from UCLA, a girl who'd gone to UCLA, and we were in Vancouver at the same time, and we all kind of got together for like a lunch. And I had met her then, and she'd Vegas, like, oh, I remember that. So we had met years earlier. So it was good to see her, and we kind of reconnected. And the small world is, I didn't realize that Ethan Peck was Gregory Peck's grandson until I Googled it. And when I got to the set, I told him, I said, this is a really small world. I said, and I know exactly when it was. I said, in late 1999, I met Gregory Peck outside the downtown library in Los Angeles, because I was producing a pitch reel, if you guys are X-Files fans, with my friend Dean Hagland, one of the lone gunmen.
Oh,
we were going to
Very
sell
cool.
a show about the fear of Y2K. So we were filming something downtown, and through our camera, we see there's a couple having lunch on the, outdoors. And as I'm kind of zooming, I realize it's Gregory Peck, right? So I go, this is crazy. And I have it on camera somewhere. So I go over to him, and we speak to him for a couple of minutes, and probably my mother's favorite actor of all time, Gregory Peck, right? So I said, I just have to meet you. And he's like, pleasure to meet you. He was with his wife. And when I told this to Ethan, he's like, yeah, he goes, my grandfather used to read publicly at the library downtown. He goes, I was probably there. I was there for many of these events. So we hit it off on that, and we talked a lot about that. And he had a lot of friends that I knew in LA from acting school and all that. So it was a good kind of hang on the transporter deck between, filming these scenes. And we're in these very restrictive costumes, as you can see, and the walk between the waiting area to where we would film in Pike's quarters was about a 3-minute walk, and then we would have to put on a face guard mask to not infect anybody while walking through, and then remove it again and act. So even though we were kind of acting with each other, we could not have that up all the time and kind of hang out, those couple of days we were filming. And it got very late, and we kind of got loopy, as I think Elora told you. We were losing it, and and also Anson. Near the end, he was kind of isolated from us for some reason, and then we chatted a lot at the end, and he was a cool guy as well. But it was not like filming most shows because of the protocol of COVID at the time.
Man.
So both you and Elora were tasked with embodying a lot of classic sitcom in-law tropes through that Vulcan filter. And the chemistry between you two is really what sells a lot of that. Were you had mentioned it a little bit, but were you consciously thinking about that in regards to your performance? Or would you say most of it was there in the script and just ready to go?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely in the script. And also it was in the, she was so strong as that character. Do you follow what I'm saying? And to me, to try to do anything as strong as that, it would not have worked as well. The kind of the disparity, the juxtaposition. So I just hung back and said the lines as they were written. And sometimes I would give a reaction, sometimes I wouldn't give a reaction. And the editor is also a part of this. They decide, or the director and the editor decide what to include, or the producer, of which takes to use. So it's really a collaborative effort, as I'm sure people tell you, but it's a collaborative effort. And I did have to decide, as you know, I do so much voiceover. I had to decide to do, what kind of voice am I going to do for this guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to do the flat Spock voice? Am I going to do that? And it just didn't seem, for lack of a term, as expressive.
Mm-hmm.
If I did that, it would have just been a lot of yes, everybody would have been talking this way, you know? So I decided to kind of go with that mid-Atlantic, kind of the 60s style. By the way, I definitely researched this. When I got this, I dove in, I watched a mock time. I'm aware of the timeline of what happens later, all this kind of stuff. So I was really pleased with the way it turned out. I mean, it was very funny. And I joked with, we do have a Vulcan family group chat. It's not, Elora mentioned it, it's not her family, it's the Vulcan family. It's myself, Elora, and Gia. We have the Vulcan family chat. And I said, I think the time is right for the spinoff, Meet the Vulcans. I think that I mean, listen, it's not crazy. It's not crazy. And I really enjoyed watching it, just kind of the analogy of intercultural marriage, whether it is a culture, a religion, a country, which is, people are, well, how, you got to know how to do this for my parents. You have to figure this out. You have to do that, and I've seen it myself in my own family, and I've seen it in other people's families. And it's just a great analogy. And I was going for a walk yesterday with a friend in Los Angeles who, from a child, was a huge Star Trek fan, and he met Leonard Nimoy and told him how much of someone he was of mixed race, that he felt that someone who was mixed race was the first time he'd seen it, as Spock, who was half human, half Vulcan. And Leonard Nimoy told him, I've never heard that before. I've heard of a lot of other things, but he'd never heard the specific, you're showing me as a mixed race person. And this episode showed it more than ever, I think, and I think that is a big part of why this episode succeeds so much.
Agreed. And I mean, another big part of it, of course, as you mentioned, is the T'Pring, T'Pril, Sevet family. And to that end, we actually do have a question for you from Elora.
What?
Yep, there we go.
Okay, well, I'll give a general one for everyone. What was their favorite part of working together? The T'Pring family. Okay. The mains get plenty of attention. We don't need to mention them. We'll talk about Just Us. We love them, but like, what was their favorite moment to play, I guess, in the episode?
This is great because I just rewatched the episode, so I can say this with some specificity. My favorite moment was not scripted, which I just saw it again now, which was where Elora says something and I kind of nod agreeingly. What was it? Where she says, a good Vulcan knows how to hold their
resilient bladder. I can't believe
bladder.
I didn't ask Elora about that line.
And I kind of go, that's right. I give this kind of go, that's right. And I'm like, that's great that even happened so naturally. So, I mean, everything she did was so great, and kind of because you do it so many times on the set, you don't know how they're going to intercut it, right? but which is I think these are delicious treats. And then she's like, I don't think so. I'm like, me neither. You know, that whole thing it's just so well put together. It's her performance. It's the cutting, everything. So, and by the way, when I'm watching it again, like Pike's micro expressions, like he's like his eyebrows and this and that, like it's hilarious. And yeah, when we got to the charades and he said sounds like, what did we do? The sounds like, or he says 2 syllables?
Yeah, 2 syllables, sounds like, and ear.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it was really late when we got to this. And then I don't know if you know, they do like the reverses on me later, like they do different angles. So it's hours later, right? So then I was like, I think I really wanted to pull my ear. But they were like, no, that might fall off or whatever. So, but I do want to say this right now for anybody putting conventions. I mean, it's a no-brainer. Play charades with the cast of the episode of charades at your convention. Come on, guys, let's do it. So, everything I did with Laura was great. And Gia, she has a lot of scenes just with Spock. So we didn't see those while they were filming it. And when I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, she's so good.
You and Anson Mount both, I think, ended up in like a similar space with, we're going to do a lot of this through micro expressions and just, like reactions. And yeah, that and how many syllables did this human use? I was
right.
Like, this is as funny as you get in a Star Trek, right? Like,
for sure.
I love that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and get another caller question in here, John. This is our very good friend and excellent supporter and caller, Abby.
Hey, Open Pike and Michael. This is Abby Summer from the First Flight podcast. First of all, I love that you guys are doing this little mini arc of people who worked on charades, because what a brilliant episode. It has rapidly risen in the ranks of my favorites to watch when I just need something fun and comforting. It has a little heart behind it. So, Michael, I wanted to ask you, and something that I asked your space wife when she was on previously, is could you please talk a little bit about the costuming in this episode and how it helped you find the character and how it helped you feel that Vulcanness? And you also had some incredibly good face acting in this. The changes from one opinion to another depending on who you were talking to. Can you talk a little bit about that? So thank you all for all of your wonderful work, and I hope that we all talk soon and that you're well. Bye.
Thank you. That was a great question. Questions. I think we've already touched on the facial expressions where I would give variations of it when we did it, like bigger, smaller, less, nothing. And it is interesting that she brings up the costumes. As I mentioned earlier, they were very constricting, the outfits. I could not eat in that outfit. I wouldn't even dare to, because you don't want to get it dirty or whatever. But it definitely improved my posture, and I entered it through the back, if that makes any sense, and then they would zip it up behind me. And I also had boots, certain like kind of very kind of Gene Simmons type boots. So that was good. And it's like wearing a jacket backwards. Does that make any sense? It'd be like wearing a jacket backwards. So you definitely don't feel like you're wearing your regular clothes, if that makes any sense. And when you're standing on the Starship Enterprise, you are aware that you're not just in Vancouver or Kansas anymore, So it definitely, all of it being there helps to create the reality that this is happening.
Do they, when you're come on for a day or two of acting and you don't have any scenes on the bridge, do they still let you go on the bridge and sit in the captain's chair?
Oh yeah, I flew that vessel to Uranus. No, I had it. I walked around. I videotaped it. I recorded it. And I walked all around. I went to the different sets. I wanted to see it.
Oh, good.
And I'm trying to think: is it close to where we did the Expanse? No, it was a different city. Because on the Expanse as well, I would go to see the different sets and all that, and that was pretty cool. Yeah,
got it.
Yeah.
And we are going to follow that up with another question from a caller. This time is our good friend Captain Idol from Trek Time.
Hello, Captain Idol from Trek Time here. Just a quick question from my favourite Vulcan father figure of 2023. In the scene with Captain Pike, Sevet seemed incredibly interested in the delicacies that he had been served. If the matriarchal might of T'Pring's mother had not been looming over them, do you think Sevet and Pike would have had a good evening drinking Tranya, eating canapes, and what do you think they would have talked about till the wee hours of the night? Thank you.
Wow, that's a good voice, first of all, whoever that person is.
Yeah, great voice.
And I want to answer his question, but I also want to talk about the food that I actually ate.
Yes.
But I will mention that after this. Okay, so it's funny. I re-watched the episode, and something I didn't pick up when I first watched it because I was too nervous about my performance coming up was my character was friends with Spock's father, correct? Which is why I'm kind of rooting for this relationship to work. I think that had Sevet and Pike, hung out together, I would be my character would be more friendly and kind of talk about the culture, the Vulcan culture, as opposed to human culture. And I would probably regale him with tales of Spock's father. And very much like my own father, talking about, his upbringing, telling people, I just kind of like that, I think. Yeah, there was a bit of my father in Sevet when I think about it, actually.
And we actually have a question specifically from a caller about that food that you got to eat. So we'll cue that up right here. This is our friend and patron, Elizabeth.
This is Elizabeth, longtime listener, first-time caller on Open Pike, and very excited about the Vulcan family interviews that we're getting. I can't wait to hear about Michael Benyaer's career and stories and what it was like on set. On that note, did anyone actually get to play charades? How was the food? It sounded crunchy, tantalizing, but was it actually that salty? We had such a fun time watching Sevet, who is essentially the Vulcan version of a golden retriever personality, contrasted with the very typically stoic other Vulcans in the room, which made it really fun to kind of apply that and read more background context into T'Pring's character and how much like her mother she can be and uptight about life and keeping things straight, but has that kindness and openness and willing to go along with a certain level of hijinks.
Wonderful question. She sounds like a nice person.
She really is.
How was the food? I think we were all wondering.
I'm trying to remember there was a fruit portion and there was a kind of curlicue, I want to say like a Dorito, which was basically, but it was like slightly soggy Dorito texture.
Aw.
So I didn't know until I got there if I was going to be eating something or whatever, and I didn't know what it was going to be because in the script it said something, and then I got there. So it was basically like, I want to say like a kumquat or like kind of like a round, like a fruit that wasn't a common North American fruit with like a pick in it and this curlicue of a slightly soggy Dorito chip, like curlicue Dorito chip. So I was like, do I eat a bit of it? Do I put the whole thing in my mouth? And there really was no time to get into the, minutiae of it. So we did it, and then I did it, and then I actually had a full mouth before I had my line. Like I couldn't eat that, like, and people were talking, right? So then I'm like making eating sounds, and I'm trying not to like make eating sounds over their lines because everybody, So it was kind of a trial by fire on that. And when I watched it again, I was like, I think they amplified the crunch sound of what I did, but I think it was like a hybrid of what it was and what it wasn't. And it wasn't delicious. I'll be honest with you. It wasn't delicious, but I did have to chew it and swallow it to get to my lines. So I did that. And that's regarding the food, the actual food that it was.
How many takes did you have to do? How many times did you have to eat it?
I want to say 6.
Okay.
I want to say 6. I'm completely wrong. I'm sure someone knows out there. The book is going to come out. It was not 6. It was whatever. So, but it was definitely real. You saw a real eating. You saw somebody really eating something and trying to be polite about it. So that was real.
And then, I've got to say, like, yours and Pike's relationship, I was so invested in.
That's a spin-off show, once again. Okay,
100%.
I mean, come on.
And I was so disappointed that you guys never got to play charades together. Was there any charades behind the scenes? Did anyone play?
I felt like, why wouldn't we play charades?
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is it just too much? Is it just too funny? Like, for the show? Like, is it, because they had that whole comedy bit with him and the other crew members, like, impersonating him and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would have been hilarious, but I guess it just leaves something for us to do in person, like I said, at all the conventions.
That's right.
There was no charades playing. Once again, we couldn't step 6 feet closer to each other.
Oh, geez.
So you had mentioned that you were fully aware of the whole situation with T'Pring and Spock, as well as Sarek, that sort of a thing. Was there any other backstory that you kind of built out for your character internally involving Sarek, or, how Sevet feels about humans, and maybe Sarek is part of that interest in humans with the human wife?
I think it was all in the script, like you're saying, which is, why would this guy kind of, like a puppy, like you're saying, go on his own and then be reined in by this wife? So that obviously he's a curious person. He is a friendly person. And, by the way, sorry to stop this question, which is the hair. Okay. So when I get cast in the role, I'm like, am I going to get the Spock hair? Right. Because,
bowl cut.
And then I Googled, are there bald Vulcans? Okay. And of course, there were a couple of bald Vulcans. Okay. But I was like, maybe they're going to give me the hair still, And when I got there, they said, there was discussion. We're just going to leave it as you. Right. I'm like, okay, which is kind of better for my career, which is people will recognize me, etc. But I was kind of secretly hoping for the Spock haircut.
That sounds like a sentiment that Alora agrees with. She was like, why were there no bowl cuts?
That's
like,
right.
Right. But she said that they tried out different haircuts on her. So, I mean, nobody even showed me the bowl cut on my, listen, I have been aware of Spock's, backstory for, I don't know, 40 years. Right. And I even remember I have the flyer for going to search for Spock. I went to see that as a teenager. Somebody invited me. I have the one page that, I went a preview screening of it. So, and as a kid, as an actor, I always felt that was a role I could somewhat realistically play. Like, someone wouldn't say to me, you can't play Spock. I'm like, I guess you could be Spock. And here I am. I'm playing a Vulcan type creature. So I wasn't wrong. But I did the research that was required of the episode, which is I went to see if my character appeared in a mock time. So does he appear? There is some kind of guy that could be him. It doesn't really say anything, but her mother character is definitely there. And I'm aware of the original timeline, which is they don't end up getting married. So this takes place before that mock time episode. Who knows if there will be more storyline, including us, up until that happens. They've got a few years to go here. I don't know. And someone's brought up the fact that maybe they'll redo a mock time with Gia and him, and maybe they'll include us. I don't know. But I definitely did my due diligence, as they say in the law, about trying to understand Sevet as much as possible. And they did. They gave a lot of information of the kind of the cultural things that they were doing in the episode. There was a lot in it.
How'd they describe the character in the casting?
They said, we're looking for a Michael Benyaer type. Oh my God, we got Michael Benyaer.
How fortuitous.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't recall.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't say Vulcan. They didn't say that. They're like, this guy is this, but this, I recently auditioned for a show and they said, this guy's almost Vulcan-like. And I said to my agent, hello. I didn't get it, but I was like, hello. But sorry, your question was, what was that?
Oh, I was just going to say, if there is anything that we as fans can do to help get more T'Pring and more Sevet into Strange New Worlds, please let us know, because we are at your service.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Likewise. It was great fun. And, what's better than doing an episode of Star Trek? 2 episodes of Star Trek or other episodes of Star Trek. So, I mean, I'm glad that I held out. Like I said, I didn't do the alien guy and whatever.
No, yeah.
So are we. Cameron, did you want to close this section out?
Yeah, well, I mean, you've done a lot leading up to this, a lot of franchises we've talked about that you've been in. You've been in a Star Wars video game, even.
Yes.
What's left on your bucket list? I mean, working with Spielberg, you said. Any other things you have your sights on?
The whole dream was to do a sitcom, to do a series regular on a sitcom. And I've done a couple of pilots. I've gotten closer on other things, and I want to do a show that goes for several years, so that it's something that I am proud of.
Are you actively seeking out Star Wars shows?
Star Wars? I did the voice of Kanan Jarrus, which is Freddie Prinze does it in the Star Wars Rebels show. Mm-hmm. So when they did the Lego Star Wars, I basically voice matched what he was doing there. So I've done that, and I've done the video game, and I've told the anecdote before, which is really funny, which is I get the email from my voice agent, and it's called The Old Republic. And I write back, is this Star Wars? And he writes back, yes, it is. I'm like, holy moly. So I get to the studio in Burbank, and there's 2 engineers there, and it's kind of an older studio, and they give me about 400 pages like this. Wow. And I look down at it, and it's gibberish, like literally gibberish. And I look at it, and I go, this is a joke, right? And they go, no. And I go, but this is gibberish. And they said, well, you auditioned for it. And I did. And I guess months earlier, I didn't know, because everything has got top secret names. Mm-hmm. So they played me this reference of what I had done, which was whatever it is. And I'm like, oh my God. So I go into the studio, and they go, okay, so we're going to play you the proper pronunciation. Then we'd like you to do one like that, and then one of your own interpretation. And I'm like, okay. So they play me Lakataka-paka-hee. Okay. And then I go Lakataka-paka-hee. And then I go Lakataka-paka-hee, or whatever it is. Okay. And I do this for about, 5 minutes. And I get to the bottom of one page, and then I just start laughing hysterically. And they're like, is everything okay? I go, look, man, I just got to say, guys. They go, what? I go, there are 5 reasons I'm laughing right now. Okay. And they go, okay, what are the reasons? I go, number 1, that someone wrote this, right? This language. Okay. And they go, okay. I go, number 2, that someone recorded the proper pronunciation of this. Okay. Number 3, that that I'm doing this. Okay. That I'm repeating that. And number 4, if my father could see how I'm making a living. Right. And they're like, okay. And then we do it. I said, listen, do me a favor. I said, can we just drop the the proper pronunciation, the guide track, because this is not a real language. No one is going to call in and say, you're not pronouncing it right. And they're like, okay. So I think I'm going to now burn through this. I'm losing like a third of the time. Right. So I'm going through these lines, and I'd say, I've lost track of time. I'd say, and I'm going into like a yogic state. Like, you're kind of like high from yoga. I'm like, because I'm not speaking English. I'm speaking these like made up words. So probably 3 hours goes by, and I'm finished. They're like, great, thank you. And I go, they go, no. There's another language. And they bring me another staff. And it's a different language that I also book. And it's like, they were like more like Swedish sounding, ruka tuka tuka snuka puka, or whatever it was. And I was like, oh my God. So then I had to do that again. And so that is literally a true story. So if you play the Old Republic and you get to these planets, that is me speaking as these characters.
That's amazing.
That's interesting though, because I would have figured they just, for something like that, say, okay, start making sounds, but they actually like phonetically broke it all down. That's impressive.
Well, it's because growing up, I went to Klingon school, so I had a basis in it. No. But I don't know, guys. It's been fun doing all these shows, and I hope that they'll allow me to be in Star Trek and Star Wars. Is that allowed? Is that allowed, guys? Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
I think
George
so.
Takei?
Yeah.
Christina Chong was in
Okay.
The Force Awakens, but I think she ended up getting cut. But yeah,
I could see you in Andor. I'd love to see you in
Dude,
Andor.
that would be awesome.
they just wrapped filming, so it'll have to be season three. But,
yeah.
but
Sure.
yeah.
Unless Michael's not telling us something.
Oh,
Well, how good of an actor am I? Oh, there's a show?
What?
And or? Okay.
and or isn't that a Star Trek alien? I don't know.
Right.
I will have to say, Michael Benyaer, Open Pike Night is an open mic night themed podcast. And have you prepared a joke for us today?
Yes, I have.
All right.
This is in keeping with the theme of the show, which is Star Trek. How many ears does Spock have?
How many ears does Spock have?
3. Right ear, left ear, and the final frontier.
I love it. Absolute
There it
Trek
is.
classic.
It is. I can't believe we haven't gotten that
Fantastic.
yet. Yeah.
One of the few, it's one of the few Trek jokes we've actually gotten. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
usually we get like, well, I brought a dirty joke and I brought a clean joke, or like, here's a 40-second setup for a punchline, and it seems like the Star Trek joke would be the easy win, right?
Right.
Like,
It's only logical.
That's
I-
right.
Exactly.
I love it. Well, Michael, thank you so much for your time
Thanks,
tonight.
guys.
We have
Absolutely.
been just waiting to have an opportunity to extol the virtues of charades, and to have you and Elora come and sit with us back to back is an absolute treat for us, and we really hope and we know that it will be an absolute treat for the fans. So thank you so much.
Thank you, and live long and prosper.
Hey.
By the
Live long
way,
and
you can
prosper.
add this in. You can add this in. I was really practicing it, and they never had us do it on camera.
Oh, that's true.
It's like you would think that'd be the first thing they'd have you do on camera.
And I, as you guys know, the Amok time was the first time that Leonard Nimoy introduced the Vulcan salute.
I mean, how cool would it have been to walk into Pike's quarters, just be like starting it and then just right to the snacks, just it's like, yeah.
It's funny. I think I actually offered or suggested it, that when we walk in, if we do it, and they're like, no, don't do it. But it
Brutal.
wasn't necessary. It was about her kind of, Empress entrance.
Yes. Yeah.
coming in.
That's true.
Well, that was a great conversation with Michael Benyaer. Continuing on our Open Pike Night charades coverage extravaganza marathon. What are we calling this?
All of the above? Yeah.
All right.
You guys,
Yeah.
it's a charades parade.
Oh,
there
there
we
it
go.
is.
Yep.
There it is.
Parade.
That's why we paid Jesse the big bucks.
Absolutely. And up next on our charades parade, if you're a subscriber to our newsletter, you will have already seen we have a call out to send in questions for charades director Jordan Canning. We talked with her for a few minutes during a junket, about a year ago?
Yeah, it was just before the
just
episode
about.
aired, so
Yeah.
9 months.
8 months, 9
yeah.
months. Yeah, so it'll be good to spend some time with her.
Quality guys, she worked on the new Fraggle Rock. Like, I'm excited to talk to Jordan Canning.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun interview. We hope you've enjoyed these Elora and Michael interviews. Jordan's getting to be super fun.
And hopefully we'll get G on soon. I hope we can make that happen. Maybe she's busy filming Strange New Worlds right now. Who knows?
Fingers crossed, man.
We'll make it happen.
We'll make every effort.
Absolutely. Jesse, how can folks sign up for that newsletter?
The easiest way to sign up for the newsletter is to go directly there, which of course is openpike.substack.com. That will send you the calls to action directly to your email, absolutely free. We don't monetize on Substack, even though they keep pushing us to do that. But that's the easiest way to know who is coming on the show when and how you can get your questions answered. Of course, you can also just go to openpike.com to find links to everything that there is to find for Open Pike Night, including #Mortegas merch. If you are lucky enough to have been on the Star Trek cruise, you may have run into our good friend engineer Mark, who would have just handed you a Mortegas magnet for free. But if you're not, you can still go get Mortegas merch at our shop for not very much money. It's pretty reasonably priced, I think.
Absolutely. And for those of you just returning to shore from that cruise, we hope you had a great time. Sounds like it was fantastic. And man, maybe next year we'll be able to get on that. That'd be pretty fun.
Toot.
I am really jealous of everybody who got to see the in-person reading of the Spock's brain script.
Mm-hmm.
Like, wow. Incredibly jealous.
Cameron.
Yes.
When you're not on the Open Pike Night stage, where can folks find you?
You can find me over at Green Shirt, a newbie trek through TNG, where we are starting in on season 7 of TNG, finishing up that while also, circling the promenade of season 2 on Deep Space Nine as well, and little mini-sodes. So come check us out over there, Green Shirt, a newbie trek through TNG, wherever you're listening to this.
And we do DS9 in 9 minutes. How about giving us 9 seconds on the beginning of season 2? How you feeling?
So good. Safe to say, much better than the beginning of season 7 for TNG.
That is entirely fair. Jesse, where can folks find you?
You can find me surfing the waves of the social media ocean at Open Pike. That's good on Twitter. That's good on Blue Sky, Instagram. I think there's a couple others. That's also our username on YouTube. We're working on bringing that up to date. But yeah, basically any social media that you can think of, just find at Open Pike. They're not all equally updated, but they are all equally monitored. So if you need to get a hold of us in a DM or something before you make a call, just search at Open Pike.
Yep. And when we're not here recording, we're out trying to find as many voice credits as we can because Michael Benyaer has us beat hands down. So be sure to clean up after yourselves. Be sure to tip your servers. You can go anywhere you want, but you can't stay here.
Reboot!